Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to the continuation of the story for the 2024 Middle of the Pack Racing League falling into LMP3 Championship as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available on PC known as iRacing and in collaboration with our parody sponsor the Dentistry Conference World Tour for 2024. We continue the story today with round 6 of 8 as we made our way to the United States of America for the one and only Circuit of the Americas. Arguably one of the youngest if not the youngest circuit on our championship calendar is a circuit that is not to be underestimated. Located in the state of Texas, particularly in the capital city of the state of Austin, it is a circuit which is known best for its bringing together of multiple corner complexes from other international circuits around the world, or at least being inspired by them, to create an absolutely tantalising, extensive 3.42 mile challenge over the course of its Grand Prix circuit. Consisting of 20 corners, our drivers will be challenging it today as they find themselves absolutely going full attack lap after lap. But is it going to be full attack lap after lap? Because this circuit is one of the hardest to get right when it comes to knowing exactly how to exploit those track limits to the advantage. And with track limits being so heavily penalised around here, could it be better to be on best behaviour and avoid the understeer rather than go all out? Well, all that and more we'll have to wait and see as we charge our way into the 6th round of the season, and we welcome you all to this broadcast live for your viewing pleasure, albeit it's a post-round broadcast as well. But what exactly does that mean, I hear you ask? Well, it means the race in action is not live. What's going on in the background at the moment is an iRacing replay file, but we're bringing it to you as if it were live as of this Monday, the 21st of October. The race in itself occurred earlier last week, and that was back on none other than Wednesday, the 16th of October, and we continue to tell you the story today of the championship campaign. Therefore, as you tune in, we welcome you all to this live broadcast, available on both YouTube and Twitch. Of course, it's available on YouTube at Paul Walsh, also known as TX141TX, the YouTube channel there, and welcome to you guys and girls on YouTube, or you could be tuning in right now via Twitch at twitch.tv/TX141. But here you ask, who is Paul Walsh? Who is TX141? Well, I'm introduce myself as your host and commentator for this season. And, well, my name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. Now we bring you all your racing action over this championship campaign. And our schedule for today is one event, and that is our one and only race around number 6. And that will be our 40-minute sprint race. Times there in British Summer Time on our schedule, BST, or Universal Coordinated Time +1, UTC +1. And we'll be getting underway with that race in approximately 12 minutes time. Before we get to our race, there is going to be a qualifying session, albeit not televised. That'll be happening in the background shortly. But let's bring you up to speed on the championship so far and what we still got lying in wait. For as we can see, going into this round, now round number 6 of the championship campaign, it does mean we are now firmly into the Stage 2 Cup. Last time out on the 9th of October, our drivers made the way around the Brazilian circuit, the infamous Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache, also known and loved under the affectionate name of Interlagos, and that was round number 5 to kick off the Stage 2 Cup, and what a round of racing it was in order to follow on from a fantastic first half of the season. But after today, we do have 2 rounds remaining, of course, and those do include firstly a visit to Japan for the Fuji International Speedway, and that will be for our final sprint race round of the season in round number 7, and then we make it our way over to Portugal for the one and only Portimao circuit, also known as the Algarve circuit, for round 8 of 8, and the second of our feature races on the championship calendar. The other one, of course, being the Stage 1 Cup in round number 4 at Le Mans. So we're going to be making our way back to the European continent to wrap things up in Portugal, and that will be on the 30th of October. And the Stage 2 Cup, ever intense, much like the Stage 1 Cup. But let's talk a little bit more about that intensity and come onto our championship standings as we make our way into this 6th round. And as we can see, starts off with the overall Drivers' Championships, and beginning with the Pro class in particular, it is Edwin Onofre who's leapfrogged his way into the lead after picking up his 2nd win of the championship campaign last time out in Brazil, leading now by 13 points over Jaden Calloway, who by comparison was not quite on the pace of leaders last time out, and he knows now he's got to try and fight back as quickly as possible, because Onofre could be onto a championship steal in charge. Meanwhile, behind him P3 is James Logsdon on 170 points, the ever-consistent Logsdon, proving once again that sometimes consistency can be key, but can he batter down the consistency of Onofre and the outright pace of Jaden Calloway? Tanner Dibble sits in P4, finding his championship charge, has lost a bit of momentum recently, and with only 3 points between himself and Eric Nickens, he's going to have to be wary of the fact that right now his P5 challenger is encroaching very quickly. David Adeyi sits a little bit further behind, a further 9 points behind for ITT West JMT, and Adeyi really has been one of the stars of the show in the first half of the season, but he's lost a little bit of form at Interlagos, and can he refine that form? Was it just a blip? And the same could be said for Jordan Butler, the second of the DNA Motorsports drivers there, a bit further afield from Tanner Dibble, down in P7, and knowing he's got work to do. Your top 10 is completed by Julian Jones, who's only 3 points ahead of Kai Moraes, the Brazilian driver who in home territory put in an absolutely brilliant performance to charge his way to the pro podium. And what can he do today? Can he rise up the ranks and perhaps even take his first win of his championship campaign? With Jason Landry a further 15 points afield, and the man who hasn't had too much luck so far, but of course he is our pro champion going into this from the Formula 4 series earlier on this year. Outside the top 10 is Christian De Soto on 91 points, well clear of Carl Ranieri there on 56 points. In P12 was only 2 ahead of John Lauzon, and Dominic Ford complete your Pro Championship standings. We come into then the Pro-Am class, and as we can see here between our Pro-Am drivers, it's Shajee Zuhair who leads the way by 12 points over his rivals, led by Matthew Quinton. And well, for Zuhair, he was your Stage 1 Cup runaway winner. He was promoted from Am to Pro-Am, but we have seen a decline in form that began at Le Mans in round number 4, and last time out at Interlagos, his championship lead has been cut to Quinton. And well, is it a sign of change in times? We think it could be, but Zuhair might be trying to prove something the opposite today, because Quinton was absolutely on fire in Brazil, as was Wesley Griffith and Tom Bryce. All 3 drivers there, all staking their claim in the ground with regards to trying to chase down that championship title. And with the trio only separated by 14 points, and then it's the further field to 12 of Shajee Zuhair, they're going to be finding themselves needing to try and close that gap a little bit more. But will they stumble and squabble amongst themselves along the way? And that, of course, is going to be the big challenge that they won't want coming their way. Garrett Chavez as well, a driver who found himself right in the front of a number of instances in Brazil, but you can never rule him out. Is absolutely flying pace, and on 123 points, he's 5 clear of Matt Best with the Texas Speed Sim Racing driver. Not racing under that label, but the reason we mention that team will come to very shortly. But he there sitting in P6, best part of 12 points clear of Mark Senegal, with Justin Delano, Justin Bragan, and Jake Gertson completing your top 10. Outside the top 10 by 2 points is Aaron Lahr, the man who normally drives the lime green machine. What could he to do today? Could he break himself back into the top 10, or will he find Jermaine Warren to swallow him up there? A further 2 points behind as they continue their ongoing scrap in the championship. And Jacob Wally only a further 5 points behind, when Nick Bader started to fall away from the pack there in the battle for P11, but you never know, he could launch himself back into it. And Sean Symes sits in P15 on only a single point. We then come to the AM class, last but no means least in the overall drivers championship. And as we see, Joseph Lamel is the man at the top. He has been stapled there since the midpoint of the Stage 1 Cup, and 10 points ahead of Braden Melling. The battle between these two continues to go back and forth, with Joseph Lamel holding that advantage. It may seem slim, but right now he'll feel confident he can extend it even further. Glenn Bratton, meanwhile, in P3, after that absolutely brilliant performance at Interlagos, running away with proceedings. Well, he sits 2 points ahead of Ethan Rolfe, having launched himself up into P3, and S. Edward Irving, meanwhile, in P5 on 93 points. He's 10 behind Rolfe, but only 2 clear of Aaron Tiggott, and therefore he'll be looking forward, but also looking backwards in the fact that he does have Tiggott very quickly trying to close the distance. Carl Peterson sits in P7 on 79 points, 3 behind Roger Ganesh, and really forming the second half of the top 10 in terms of the championship battle, with Jason Seelin not too far behind, and nor the same for Alexander Freselon. With Jesse Jameson Jr. 11 points off of the top 10 in P11, best of the rest, head of Navarro Kumar, and then we see Tim Chong, Todd Miller, and Kurt Smith rounding out the AM Championship. Then coming on to the Teams Championship, and we can see here it's all to play for, with ITT West leading the way, but their lead is only 19 points. Indeed, this Teams Championship is not running away into any particular team's hands. We thought earlier on in the season it would be the sister ITT West team of JMT who would be running away with things. Then it was DNA Motorsports for a brief period, and now ITT West have tried to hold on to the top, but how long can they hold on for? It is a long journey from round to round, and we've still got 3 to go, including today. DNA Motorsports, meanwhile, give the hottest of the chases, but they're 10 points clear of Photon Clan, who are quietly moving the way up the ranks, it must be said, and their consistency and resilience really proving pivotal as they moved into the third place spot, with ITT West JMT returning to P4 from P5 last time out, but 9 they're going to need to do a little bit more if they want to get to the top once again, or make it an ITT West 1-2 at the end of the season. Eclipse Racing Esports by Skyline Designs, they sit in P5, and they've broken away in terms of batting towards the bottom end of the top 10, and you can also see there their name has broken through the table charts. That goes to show the impressive presence they've had throughout the season so far, with Team Bearpo sitting in P6 ahead of Sunday GT Turtles, and it's Kind of Fast Racing Team, Second Breakfast, and Vice Motorsports who complete your team's top 10. Outside the top 10, Best of SP11 is middle of the pack racing 152 points, as they find themselves still trying to regroup after what was that brilliant opening couple of rounds form, but it's not quite come back since then. Then it's Caboose Crew, Breakfast for Dinner, and Slipstream Sloths who complete your team's championship standings. And then coming on to the Cup Championship, of course, because we do have the Stage 2 Cup that's running in parallel with all of this, and it's just based on what is the final 4 rounds of the championship, so rounds 5 through to 8 make up the Stage 2 Cup, and we'll be counting the points in those rounds, and by the end of it, whoever's got the highest points tally in each of our classes will be the winner and receive a monetary prize of $5. And in the pro class, we see it's Edwin Onofre who leads after his win last time out at the Interlagos circuit, and really taking all the points home with that pole position, the fastest lap, and the all-important win ahead of Jaden Calloway, a further 5 points behind, who just could not find a way to bring down Onofre. Nor Kyle Marai's MP3 there on 44 points, with Tanner Dibble a further 2 behind, but the driver to note, Eric Nickens. Many of you may remember he kept Edwin Onofre honest throughout the first 20 minutes of the race at Interlagos, but then the pressure got too much. The pace fell away, and an unfortunate instance as well for Eric Nickens meant that he span himself down to P5, and where he's got it all to do once again, and he's only ahead of Jason Landry based on result countback, with Landry there sitting in at P6 on equal measure. Julian Jones sits P7, and Carl Ranieri completes the pro standings for the Stage 2 Cup. We then come on to the Prime class, and it's Matthew Quinton who leads the way by 4 points over Matt Best, with the 2 drivers having some of their best performances of the season last time out in Brazil, and then Shajee Zuhair, the driver who right now is trying to recuperate and re-find his form, but can he find a way to strike back versus the Briton and the American? Well, that's going to be a big question to be asked, and the same for Tom Bryce there, a man not to be counted out. He's had his flare of brilliance over the course of the season, but he'd be hoping to shine a little bit brighter today, with Wesley Griffith only a point behind, and then Garrett Chavez and Aaron Lahr completing the Prime Cup standings. And then we come on to the AM class, and as we can see here, Roger Ganesh with that infamous win, his first ever middle of the pack Racing League class win since his inception into league, and well, as we can see, they're taking that win by 2 points over Joseph Blamel, who was hot on his heels towards the end of the race, but there wasn't enough time to bring down Ganesh, and then S. Edward Irving completed the top 3, a further 2 behind. So a further 3 points to Jason C. Lynn, who unfortunately won't be seen on the grid today due to personal circumstances, but always well with him as I'm to understand it, and then Braden Melling completes your top 5. Glenn Bratton, Aaron Tiggett and Carl Peterson will wrap up the AM Cup standings after 1 round, and there's, of course, 3 more to go. But speaking of rounds and races to go, let's come on to our circuit for today and where we're going to go racing. And as we can see, we'll be taking on the Grand Prix layout of the Circuit of the Americas, located near the city of Austin in Travis County of the US state of Texas. This circuit is a behemoth to behold when it comes to road racing. With its 20 corners and its extensive distance of 3.42 miles, well, it's a Herman Tilke designed circuit, given the fact many of you may have noticed it does borrow elements from other circuits around the world, whether it be the Maggots into Beckett's complex of turns 3 through to 6, or alternatively the stadium sections from the Hockenheim Ring, which of course was previously redesigned by Herman Tilke, and that being the run of turn 12 all the way through to 19. We also do have an extremely wide track racing surface, which means practically every corner provides opportunities for overtakes, albeit our drivers will be the judges of where the best place is to overtake, and it wouldn't be a Tilke circuit without an all-important 1 kilometre long back straight, which you can see from turns 11 through to 12. And thank you to iRacing.com for their brilliant simulator and the fantastic trap maps that come with it. However, rather than talk about the circuit and break it down through words, what's better when they say is normally the picture speaks 1,000 words, and well, a reference lap by Jason Landry is going to do exactly that as we jump on board for a flying lap here of the COTA circuit. So as he makes his way up the hill towards turn number 1, the very steep gradient there as he charges his way up the rise, and he'll be looking to brake as late as possible into the low speed corner, coming all the way down to first gear and fighting at the steering wheel there to get the car to turn in. Now as he makes his way down the hill flat out here into turn number 2, coming into the middle of the road before turning in, making sure to open up the corner enough to carry as much speed as possible, and now into the sweep and SS section. Turn 3 into 4, it's going to be just a gradual lift and downshift down to 4th gear as he makes way through 5 and into 6, a further downshift into 3rd gear, and taking a V-shaped approach there as he now cuts back over to the right hand side in order to open up the left-hander at turn number 7. Now into turn 8, and the average apex speed here very rapidly coming down as he drops his way for the right-hander into left-hander at turn number 9, having to avoid the raised yellow sausage curb there, not to unsettle the car through the kink of 10 and now down towards 11. And notice here how the road surface opens up incredibly. It makes it so it's 6 car wide here as he goes onto the brakes at the 100 metre board, down to first gear, and now roaring his way down that back straight. It's a quick first half of the lap, and indeed a much faster first half of the lap compared to the second half of the lap, with the intervening back straight here as Landry has time to take a breather and now get himself set up for the next braking zone. Speaking of which, it's upcoming as he looks to his right hand side for his brake marker, and he will be looking to brake there, or what will be the 100 metre board coming all the way down to first gear for turn number 12. Flipping the apex, he makes his way out, and now over to the left hand side he'll go to open up the hairpin at turn number 13, down to second gear at the apex here, not dropping to first to make sure to avoid any wheel spin as he comes on through turn number 14 into 15. That very nasty right into double left apex hairpin complex where it's all about trail braking and keeping the car pointed straight, but also turning gently on the steering. But he makes one out now to be through what is turns 17 and 18 as he comes all the way through the double right-hander and now down towards turn number 19. He'll come keep the car to the right side here. Quick squish of the brakes as he makes his way into third gear, taking plenty of apex curve, riding over the yellow sausage curve there. Now to turn number 10 at the left-hand right angle corner, down to second gear. Very tricky to get right, particularly with that raised curve to complete lap and do it all over again. And thank you to Jason for that wonderful reference lap. But coming into this race, of course, a quick reminder of the rules for the uninitiated. Setup-wise, drivers are running a fixed setup as provided by the Middle of the Pack Racing League, with fuel loads in these cars restricted to 50 litres. In general, with regards to our races, they shall begin via a rolling start, and the driver shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 15 or more instant points, and that's why track limits here today, as you may have noticed from that reference lap, given just how much runoff area there is, where it's easy to get greedy by running wide, but doing so, you'll pick up an instant point, and you pick up 15 of those. Remember, it's 1 for an off-track, 2 for a loss of control, and it is 4 for contact with another driver that's deemed to be excessive, and you very quickly could be finding yourself breaking through that limit and picking up a drive-through penalty. And could it be penalties that make the difference today? Well, we hope not, of course. We want to see it all done on the racing, but you never know what can happen with regards to penalties. Now, as for our sprint race, well, the grid order shall be set based on the results of the closed qualifying session, which is currently ongoing. It's just before the race, and then we will be seeing in the course of the race each driver having one faster repair available should they be involved in an incident of some description and they need to do some repair work, and there'll be no safety car deployed at any point during the race, even if we have a major incident on lap number 1, and that does mean that our drivers need to keep it calm, cool and collected and avoid any major bumps and scrapes there, because they may find themselves falling out of the hunt in the race before they can truly get racing if they do need to come into the pits, because it is quite a long pit lane here at the Circuit of the Americas. And that's enough rules and regulation, everything in between. You're all here for the racing, and so are we. And well, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's come to your grid for the 6th round of the championship in the Middle of the Pack Racing League, falling into LMP3 Championship for 2024. And as we can see, Jaden Calloway has taken pole position for ITD West, and he will be joined on that front row by Jason Landry, the Canadian driver there, returning to form with the second place qualifying lap for Sunday GT Turtles, but almost 8/10 off an incredible pole lap for Jaden Calloway. And well, given the fact that's done without slipstream in an isolated lone qualifying session, you would imagine that Calloway absolutely nailing the lap. Behind them, starting P3, is Edwin Onofre. They're looking to make it 3 wins this season if he can today. And then we have your pole sitter in the prime class, and that is Matthew Quinton, the Briton there, and well, taking that pole position in P4 by quite some margin over his rivals, who will come to in due course. Julian Jones starts P5 for ITD West JMT, and he's joined on the third row of the grid by Eric Nickens for Photon Clan, with second place prime driver Shajee Zuhair starting P7 for ITD West JMT, and he's joined on the fourth row of the grid by Kaya Marais, the privateer. And then completing your top 10, it's Matt Best for second breakfast and Dominique Ford, the privateer there from the United States. And then we have just outside the top 10, Best of SP11, your AM pole sitter of Joseph Blamel, who returns to pace leading form in qualifying in the AM class for Eclipse Race and Esports by Skyline Designs. Mark Senegal starts P12 for Sunday GT Turtles, and behind them on the 7th row of the grid, it's Tanner Dibble for DNA Motorsports and Jermaine Warren for Middle of the Pack Racing. On row number 8, Tom Bryce lines up P15 for ITD West JMT, and he'll be in the company of Wesley Griffith for Photon Clan. And then we see Aaron Tiggett started P17 for Team Bear Pope ahead of Glenn Bratton, the winner last time out at Interlagos. And then we will see completing the top 20 on row 10 at Braden Mellin and what is there, Nick Bader for Eclipse Race at Esports by Skyline Designs and the privateer outfit respectively. With the last full row of the grid, row 11 going to David Adeyi for ITD West, no valid qualifying lap, and the same for Aaron Lahr, the privateer. And Roger Ganesh lines up P23 of 23 starters for Sunday GT Turtles. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as the partial formation lap gets itself underway, we look down to the front of the field, and a quick point. The reason why we talked about Texas Speed Sim Racing a little bit earlier on, keep your eyes out on a number of our drivers' cars here today, because they are running special liveries dedicated to the spirit and industry of Texas. And well, we can tell you that those liveries were submitted before the time of the racing round, and well, a contest was put on by Texas Speed Sim Racing, whereby by running Texas themed liveries, the best livery, as adjudged by Texas Speed Sim Racing's judging team, would earn the winner $10 in iRacing credits. And we're not going to reveal who the winner is until the end of today's broadcast, but as our drivers make the way on through, well, Jaden Calloway leads the field in towards the stadium section right now. The proverbial run of what is there turns at 16 through to turn at number 18. It's a long time behind the safety car here, but all the field coming together. And we do say hello in the YouTube chat to Edwin Onofre there, who says, let's get it. Also to Tom Bryce and Jason Landry. Good good evening to you guys. And well, Jason Landry commenting there on the fact that whilst he put the car in P2, Jaden Calloway's pole lap was absolutely on fire. There was no way he could get close. Well, now Jaden Calloway will need to prove that he's not fiery just over a single lap, but he's also got that inner combustion within him to hold on for 40 minutes of racing. It's a long race and it's a sprint race, but 40 minutes will feel like an eternity after a while for some of our drivers here as they look to keep it calm, cool and collected. But as the pace car gets ready to pull aside, well, it will mean that Jaden Calloway will dictate the pace coming on to the start-finish straight, and as he does so, this 23 car field is about to get ready to roll away with their Nissan 5.6 litre engines. There, those wonderful V8s will get ready to roar, and Calloway will be the one to dictate when we go green flag racing as he creeps his way along the start-finish line straight. But as they make the way on through, still waiting for a bit longer. He's going to take it as close as possible to the start-finish line, and it's lights out and away we go for the 6th round of the championship as Jaden Calloway gets a good start. Edwin Onofre immediately attacking up from the rear as they make the way up the hill into the braking zone, and as they come hard on the anchors, all of the drivers sweeping on through there. You can see the natural concertina and narrowing towards the apex, but everybody safely on through the opening couple of corners. We see there Roger Ganesh absolutely getting bogged down and losing what was a multitude of places into the braking zone, given the fact that everybody really wrapping around him on that outside line. And as our drivers now segue their way on through the S's, where it'll be at line astern for a period of time here. Nobody can really go too wide through here without losing a lot of pace, and nobody wants to gamble on it on the opening lap of the race. Particularly with cold tyres and cold brakes, but Dominic Ford here, who's had quite an absence from the grid over the course of the season, following what was an absolutely brilliant win at Spa-Francorchamps in the season opener. Well, the #1 driver here now returning to form and looking to prove he can be #1 once again in the Lightning McQueen livery, and well, that dedicated to the movie cars. But meanwhile, into the braking zone, over turn 11 they go. Kyle Rose taking a quick look up the inside there, trying to get the door open on Julian Jones. You saw Eric Nickens being elbowed out wide, albeit Nickens finds himself in a free wide, and the last place you want to be is on the outside unless you can cut it back. But both his rivals absolutely nailing their braking points, and under retardation it does mean that Eric Nickens has fallen back 2 more places. But as they head in towards the braking zone now for turn number 12, see the field fanning out as Ryan's going defensive. Nickens looking to the inside, looking to make the counter attack, and well, 2 wide they're going. Oh, good to see Jason Landry has gone around just ahead of them, and not quite sure, we didn't quite see whether that was aided or unaided with regards to the Canadian driver pointing in the wrong direction, but he's got himself pointed back in the right direction now, but down in P16, and now he's got a lot of work to do as the field now cuts its way through the low speed section of Run Deep there from, oh, good to see the car round. That's Joseph Blamel, the pole sitter, and car into the side of Blamel, and that is none other than Glenn Bratton, who's found his way in haste into the side of him, I do believe, albeit Bratton now getting himself out of speed. No, Bratton in fact taking evasive action. I think that might have been the car in fact of Nick Bader that made contact, and Joseph Blamel's race is really coming to a drastic halt. He's creeping along here. I suspect there's suspension and steering rack damage, and Blamel's going to try and get it into the pits and go for the fast repair, but now his work has been absolutely tripled. But meanwhile, after 1 lap of racing, it's Jaden Calloway who leads, going on to lap number 2, followed by Edwin Onofre. Then we have Matthew Quinton, your Pro-Am pole sitter, still in the Pro-Am class, but goes a bit deep into turn 1. Oh my goodness, and that is a slide under braking, and Julian Jones missed his rear wing. I wonder if he's been pushed forward. Kyle Morais as well. Well, Kyle Morais involved in a bit of an altercation there, we do believe, but Julian Jones's rear wing missing, and indeed a lot of damage to the rear of the car. Again, we're not going to point the fingers, but it seems like the two had a bit of an incident at the same time based on the data that's available to us, and well, an absolute nightmare there for Julian Jones. He had to be towed to the pits, and could that be Jones's race now put back into the garage? And well, as the drivers make the way through, Jason Landry giving us some clarification there in the YouTube chat to say that he locked up the rears and almost hit Jaden Calloway, and will all on his own in terms of making the error, and appreciate the transparency there, Jason, and it can happen even to the best of us. As meanwhile, Kyle Morais going on around, and I suspect there might be some damage on that LMP3 in order for him to go spinning around at turn 10, because we didn't see him go too high in the apex curve. Meanwhile, battling side by side here, Roger Ganesh and David Adeyeye, and Adeyeye immediately looking to the inside, and Roger Ganesh putting his hands up metaphorically in the car and simply saying to him, look, I don't want anything to do with this. You're a Pro-Am driver or a Pro driver, and well, in fact a Pro driver here for David Adeyeye, previously a Pro-Am course in the Formula 4 Championship. I want you to get on and get away from me, because I've got an AM race to win, and well, you're not in my class. But keep in mind, of course, that for our drivers here, it is all about battling each other regardless of what class they are in, for the simple reason that you gain points where you finish overall first and foremost. There's only bonus points available for finishing on the podium in the AM and the Pro-Am classes, as Roger Ganesh gets back at David Adeyeye there on the inside, and well, it might have been a message to simply say, look, let's keep swapping swapping the places, but make sure we pull away from the drivers behind us and try to work together. Indeed, the saying, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, is always a beneficial one in the early stage of the race when you've got your rivals trying to chase after you. But again, just to reiterate, in the Pro and the AM classes, it's 3 points for first, 2 for second, and 1 for third. Otherwise, all your points are scored up to 50 if you take the overall race win. And there's also a fastest lap each in class, and also for pole position when we do have a qualifying session. But meanwhile, it's getting very tasty towards the rear of the field, as we do see there what is a bit more defensive action for Roger Ganesh versus Aaron Lahr. And meanwhile, at the front of the field, Dominic Ford on the attack here, looking around the outside, Edwin Onofre. He's got Matthew Quinton for close company behind him. In fact, that's Ford having to go defensive versus Quinton after making the move down the start, finish straight in order to move up into P3. So Dominic Ford now making more progress, having started down in P10. Well, a very quick starter, no doubt about that. And that lovely camera shot there demonstrating how much of a delta he's now got to close down to the top two. Meanwhile, the further the field going back behind, and there we see Eric Nickens in the Photon Clan machine in the 44 in P6. The P4 Pro driver right now in that special livery, making his way on through turn number 9 very shortly. And as he does so, we're coming up to it right now. That was 7, now into 8, now 9. Where Eric Nickens 9, he's got a bit more to do here in order to try and close down the leading pro drivers. But 5 minutes of this race complete. We've still got plenty more time to go. And tyre degradation could be a big thing here, given the fact the circuit in the Americas is absolutely brutal on the tyres over the course of the lap. And when you do have laps that span the best part of just over 2 minutes, and we've got 40 minutes of racing, when you do the quick mathematics, and you'll find that we're going to be doing at least what will be 19 laps around here, if my maths is correct, perhaps 18, depending on how long the pit stops are. And it does mean those tyres are going to go through quite the beating before the very end. But still, the only driver right now who'll be looking to do some beating, it will be Aaron Tigger, and he'll be wanting to beat Braden Melling, who's just a bit further up the road, and get away from Landry and Kai Morais, with Landry having a further instant at the start of this lap that's put him down to P18. So Landry's race going from good to bad to worse very rapidly, but he hasn't given up yet, and that's the spirit that has given Landry the opportunity to take many a title in previous seasons of what has been his middle of the pack racing career, and indeed in his wider esports career as well. Jason Landry, a very highly decorated driver, it must be said, and really a shining light for the Canadian esport racing community, no doubt about it. But the drivers come in towards turn number 16. We can see there Tigger going a little bit deep, and Landry now looking around the outside, and Tigger backing off there, knowing that the writing's on the wall. He's going to be passed by 1 and then 2. Kai Morais trying to go all the way around the outside, but Morais finding that on that outside line there's only really a very little grip available, and therefore he has to back off and try to look for the opportunities. We jump on board with the number 88 as he heads up towards turn at number 20, and they're too wide further up the road as meanwhile Tigger goes very deep there, and Morais brings it back together, but the car absolutely sliding all over the place. And it feels as though right now for many of the drivers that this circuit is a bit of an ice rink, if anything, as they make the way up the hill. And we did see there a bit of a change up the front of this running order, and that is the battle for the lead of the AM class. And Roger Ganesh holds on to that lead currently. And meanwhile, Braden Melling was just passing Glenn Bratton into the final corner. There you can see that Mellingham gained the place just behind Roger Ganesh as they make the way into the SS sequence through turns 3 in towards 6. For that AM top 3 absolutely now together right now, and Roger Ganesh hoping that with Landry and Morais coming on through, they can open up a bit of a gap before they finally come to him and look to pass him in turn. But as the drivers make the way onwards towards turn number 9, it will Melling right now and to look more and more in his rear view mirror, and we look over the rear of the car. Oh, goodness me, and Glenn Bratton goes around and hits the inside barrier there, and that is drama for Glenn Bratton, who was running well in P3 in the AM class, but it's unfolded. Aaron Lahr and Nick Bader make the way on past him. Bratton brings himself back up to speed, but the thankful thing he'll be thankful for will be that Joseph Blamel is still the best, but always 10 seconds behind him. There's a bit of a gap there, but Bratton, with that damage after hitting the barrier, I wouldn't be surprised if he'll be contemplating now potentially revising his strategy for this race, because there is a mandated pit stop with those 50-litre fuel tanks. They're not going to be able to get to the end of the race unscathed on fuel capacity without a dip into the pits for a little bit of extra fuel. These cars are very thirsty with their V8 engines, no doubt about it, and right now Bratton will need to do a bit more strategizing. But meanwhile, we look back to Braden Melling, who's being passed here by Jason Landry in to the turn 13 hairpin, and as Landry now cuts tight to 14, then down to 15 and 60 he goes. That double left braking sequence absolutely painful on the arms and legs in equal measure as they roll off the turn 16 apex. You can see how Melling right now looking just to try and keep within touch there of Landry and not let Morais get too quickly on his backside, because otherwise he may lose a bit more time. And with the Sunday GT Turtles riders together, you can imagine that Landry wants to get on through, does it, a bit of a compromise in place. Meanwhile, Morais dives the inside there in turn 19. Melling not expecting that, opens the door up, and Aaron Tigger says, "Don't mind if I do, gents." And the 286 driver gets up the inside of his own rival. Does he also clear his pro rival as well? He doesn't quite. And Moraes will get the throttle down there. And Aaron Tigger being ever the opportunist. And we love to see it, albeit we didn't love to see the contact there between Moraes and Melling. It happened, however. And now they move forward. But Braden Melling coming back immediately. Tigger leaves the door open. Melling goes absolutely tight on the inside there with a less grippy line and the shorter run to the apex. But gets it stopped on a dime. Brilliant counter-attack there from the number 213 driver. And Braden Melling back up into P2 in the AM class. But is it all over in terms of that battle for the brief moment? Yes, it is, as Aaron Tigger backs off there into the S's 9. The 2 wide does not normally go as they come sweeping through turn at number 6. But whilst all this is playing out further behind, meanwhile at the front of the field, this man is absolutely storming away, or at least attempted to. He does own what is the fastest lap of the race, almost, albeit not quite, but with his sectors combined that he's done over individual laps, he has got purple sectors everywhere, minus in what is sector 2. That's gone to Edwin Onofre behind the fastest lap, in fact, in the hands of P3 driver Dominic Ford. But Jaden Calloway is the man we're referring to here, and he's to focus our cameraman's attention. And the ITT West driver absolutely right now just trying to pull away, but Edwin Onofre is keeping with him, albeit the gap has opened up on an average of 1.5 tenths a lap so far, and it is creeping further and further afield. And then Dominic Ford's still got some work to do. He is the fastest man out there on paper, but knowing that being the fastest man out on paper for a lap or two is relatively straightforward, but being the fastest man out there for what is the best part of 20 minutes at the Circuit of the Americas, you've got another thing coming. But Dominic Ford is going to improve, otherwise he makes his way in towards turn 20. With a quarter of the race down, we've still got 30 minutes to go. A new personal best from Edwin Onofre, but what does Dominic Ford do this time as he comes across the line? Well, he's going to set a personal best of his own, a 203.075, and well, the lap time's already starting to fall away and compress away from the 202s, but the number 1 driver here, up the rise he goes, with Matthew Quinton, the prime leader, keeping him company. And well, if you're Matthew Quinton at this point, what you've got to start thinking about surely is it worth putting pressure on Ford so early on, or is it better to stay within this region of approximately 6 tenths to a whole second behind and fuel save as much as possible? Because if he can leapfrog his way via strategy into P3 and not look back, he may have the confidence to feel as though he can then take an overall podium, which will get him some extra points in his championship and also give him a big mental boost as well. Taking an overall podium as a prime driver when it happens is one of the best feelings that a prime driver can have. I can tell you that over the course of many a round and season in the Middle Pack Racing League. But meanwhile, we've had some drama further down the order. Aaron Lahr has gone around. He's gone around in the run in towards turn 1. I suspect he spun at the apex and then had to put himself to the inside of the corner towards the grass in order to get off the racing line and try to get himself righted again. But a very interesting way of getting himself turned around. But Aaron Lahr doing so very rapidly indeed, and well, releasing at what was P8 in the AM class to Nick Bader. Meanwhile, Aaron Tigger's had an off, and that is in the run through the S's. That, I do believe, is coming through turn number 6 into 7. The Team Bearpoke driver going the wrong direction. I wonder if there's a bit of a contact with the barrier. I can't see any visible damage on the car, at least on the right-hand side, albeit as he makes way back at speed, it would have been the left-hand side, we believe, that would have made the contact. And he's got Joseph Blamel right behind him, and Blamel and Tigger, these two are inseparable right now. They've had their own journeys off the circuit and their own spins along the way, but they now find themselves back together once again and getting ready to battle as they head out to turn number 11, down the back straight to turn number 12, and as they roar the way on down. Well, meanwhile, two protagonists coming together. This is Jaden Calloway and Edwin Onofre, and well, the gap between the two of them has halved itself over the course of this lap. And we believe there's been some major errors over this lap from Jaden Calloway. Either that or he's been doing tyre saving, because of the fact his sectors, by comparison to Onofre, have on average been 2.5 tenths slower. And we can see that. Look at the lap time, 203.512 to a 202.732. So Edwin Onofre putting the pressure on here and moving back forward in terms of that pace. Dominic Ford as well now starting to up the ante, moving into the 202s once again. And the number 95 driver in the number 1 car, well, the number 1 car driver, I should say, as he makes his way down, albeit does have the door number 95 on the side, and they're confusing me because that's the number of Lightning McQueen. Goodness me, I wonder if he's giggling to himself right now because I looked at the wrong number on the car. But regardless there, he's absolutely going for it right now, and that car is looking animated, if you excuse the pun, as he roars his way in towards turns 7, 8 and 9. But as he does so, Matthew Quinton coming on through and still keeping them honest there in the 184 and not looking back whatsoever. A 5-second gap now to Matt Best, and we can see here the second breakfast driver and also representative of Texas Speed Sim Racing. And well, as he roars his way on down there, well, I'm going to have to look away from his car shortly, ladies and gentlemen, for the simple reason with having a Denny's on the side right now, I could definitely go for a Denny's. And well, as he makes his way on through turn number 11, we go from what is hunger for food to hunger for points, and he's got Eric Nichols and Shajee Zuhair closing on him as we ride on board and look back from our 5th place driver, 2nd place prime driver driver of Matt Best, as Eric Nickens is not going to be as much of a consideration in the Prime class, given he's a pro driver, but Shajee Zuhair will be, and Zuhair is there in the wings, 1.1 seconds back and waiting for an opportunity. Has a little bit of a twitch there as he made his way on through turn, what was 11, turn number 12 under braking. You can see the car not wanting to settle down under initial brake in the rear snapping loose, and that can be an indicator that Best might be running quite a significantly rearward brake bias, because normally when you do go under heavy braking in these cars with a rearward brake bias, what you will see happen is that the rear will start to loosen itself very quickly when the brakes start to be lifted up, and well, as a result, Best there really having to do a twitchy rear end, and with everybody running the same setup, these cars definitely will come down to the driver's ability to conquer them, and the only thing I believe they are allowed to tweak is the brake bias to suit their personal desires, but everything else comes exactly as packaged, and Eric Nickens finds himself right now being what is the meat in the Prime battle around him as they make the way down the start for this straight. And you can see their Best trying to break the toe briefly, a little bit of a bob and weave into the middle of the road. He'll be allowed to do that as long as it's not too excessive, and as they break the way up the hill, Eric Nickens saying, well look, stop the weaving, I can get a lot closer under braking, let me go. And well, of course, Matt Best does not need to let it go whatsoever, and Nickens there by going so deep under braking and showing his prowess. And I think trying to get into Best's head the fact that he can really attack under braking, well, it may be a little bit of a manoeuvre too far, because Shajee Zuhair now very close as we ride on board here with a 109 driver as he passes our camera at turn number 6, getting extremely on the tight and narrow there. Was Eric Nickens throwing a spin, and Zuhair riding right behind him as they come out of turn number 9 now, and Zuhair too close, and as a result losing the downforce he needs over the front end of the car in order to be able to carry all the speed coming through 9 into 10. And that's one thing as well, when you run close to a rival in these LMP3 machines, you lose a lot of the downforce, which gives you that natural high speed grip. But on top of that as well, the circuit in the Americas, with it being a very slippery road surface and a lot of high load corners, you need that downforce, and that's something that Zuhair there needed in order to get close, but he was too close at the time and couldn't pounce. Instead, he hurt his own charge, and as he makes his way down towards turn number 12, he won't want to make that mistake again as he comes down onto the brakes through the left-hand hairpin and now up towards turn number 13. A sequence of right-angled hairpins and then almost 180-degree corners, with Zuhair now definitely showing that he can inch closer and closer as he battles with a little bit of rear wheel spin. There you can see the rear of the car just twitching out as he came out of what's turn 13. But now looking to set himself back down and get his composure together and make sure he doesn't overheat those tyres, and that could be critical to success here. But as he makes his way on past the tower, meanwhile we've had a spin for Wesley Griffith, the Votan Clan driver, who's not normally associated with spins, but he's had his first major one of his championship campaign, and the 162 driver dropping down from what was at the time, I do believe, P12 overall and P6 in the Prime class. He's given that up to Tom Bryce, and he's also lost a place overall to David Adeyeye, and it puts him down in P14 as he brings himself back together. Further down the order as well, we've had a bit of a battle here for Nick Bader versus Braden Mellon. The two have exchanged places quite recently, and Nick Bader right now absolutely on a mission to try and get his place back as they head on through turn number 17-18. We look down from the tower, the COTA tower, as he heads on through the double right-hander, and Roger Ganesh just up the road there as a pit stop already for David Adeyeye. As I look at my commentary booth window, we've had one retirement in the form of Julian Jones, but Adeyeye is the first into the pits. So the flash of the lights there from what is Braden Mellon trying to distract Roger Ganesh, who is your AM leader at this time of the Sunday GT Turtles driver, not letting it distract him as we ride on board and look back from the rear of the AM leader, P15 overall, and Ganesh right now hoping he can try and make it 2 wins back to back, but no, that's easier said than done as here comes Nick Bader looking on the inside. It makes Mellon go a little bit deeper under braking, but everybody right now locked up in this long train, and Ganesh just leading them around and pushing them on with his own impetus as they roar their way from right into left, and as they come in towards what will be the main part of the essence here, heading through turns 4, 5 and 6. We can see it's a game of follow the leader, and it's a game of do not slip off the circuit behind the leader, which is so easy to do. And even Ganesh right now, you can see in the body language of the car, just from the parts that we can see here, how he's having to run to the absolute edge of adhesion, and this circuit not being kind of not offering that much natural grip for our drivers, and therefore that could really be confounding those who feels like they could carry a bit more pace. But as this AM battle with some primes intermingled into it continues to reach, because crescendo. Well, there's Nick Bader taking a dive to the inside, but you can see there, whilst there's all the space on the inside, he then has to tighten off the apex much more aggressively, and Braden Melling's able to break away, and this will bring Aaron Lahr in the lime green machine, the privateer, to attack him as they make the way on down the back straight. But everyone in the tow here, and now it's the big question: do you fuel save, do you tyre save, or do you attack, or do you potentially at the end of this lap dive into the pits, given the fact they're all starting to hold each other up here, and strategy might be the word that's key. Meanwhile, a bit of close moment there between what is Aaron Lahr and Joseph Blamel. Blamel diving to the inside, looking around the outside now, but Lahr counter-attacks and says no you don't, and fends the inside. It's turn 13. It's brilliant racing between them, and right now I think both drivers trying to say to the other, look, just let me go and focus on my own race, because I've got my rivals in front of me, and neither driver wanting to settle down. And that's the wonderful thing when overall points are up for grabs just as much as class finishing position points as they make the way on through turns 17 and 18. There's so much to play for here, regardless of whether you're racing a driver in your class or in a different class. Shajee Zuhair has come into the pits and exited very quickly, so a quick pit stop there for the Pro-Am Championship leader overall. As meanwhile, the front of this battle, Ganesh versus Melling, and Ganesh on the outside. Melling dives to the inside, and it's a nice move, a bit of contact there from Nick Bader, attached to the rear of Ganesh's car, but it will be Braden Melling who takes the AM lead when absolutely succinct move into the final corner. And just in time to get to the end of the first half of the race as the class and therefore the P14 lead battle up. But meanwhile, Roger Ganesh back up the inside. It's not over yet, and Braden Mellin, I think, thinking as though he had enough done, but now it's going to be Ganesh who's on the attack. And I can tell you, after that victory at Interlagos, we have seen a different kind of Sunday GT Turtle driver here, and it's absolutely lovely to see. As meanwhile, Lahr and what is Bader go side by side. Initially, yes, as Bader takes a bit of the sausage curve. Meanwhile, going very deep as Joseph Lamel as he runs out wide. They're carrying too much of an overspeed in the dirty air of the two Pro-Am drivers, but as they make the way through, it's still too wide between Bader and Lahr. These two not giving each other an inch here, and will they go to show you can go too wide through the S's, and Lahr goes around the outside at turn number 9, and my goodness, I have not seen a move like that ever through turn number 9, but Aaron Lahr showing the confidence and grit and determination to make it happen in the most unconventional place of the Circuit of the Americas. Nick Bader, meanwhile, still tucking in and defending versus Joseph Blamel, with Glenn Bratton, Aaron Tiggett and David Adeyi catching on to the back of this. And remember, Adeyi was the first driver to pit, so he's come out right behind this battle, and right now he's going to be absolutely fuming and hoping they all come into the pit soon, because they're going to cost him a huge amount of time. As Braden Mellin here, now Roger Ganesh up his inside. Ganesh goes way too deep on the brakes, locks up, gets it stopped. But the problem is Roger Ganesh will run a little bit deep there, and that's going to bruise his front tyres, bruise his brakes, and also bruise his confidence a bit in the fact that he's now sacrificed what is 3 places for what was the attempt of 1 in terms of gaining. But as they make the way in towards turns 15 and 16, that's a dart move to the inside from what was Joseph Blamel. A lovely dart to the inside there. Blamel absolutely teasing that out by setting himself off on the opposite line in terms of inside versus outside on Ganesh. And well, Ganesh, with the fact he's got warm hot tyres, given at that late braking in towards turn number 12, with the lockup as well, and Blamel abusing that to his advantage as David Adeyi starts to carve his way through this pack, tries to get to the inside of Roger Ganesh, can't quite find it, the ITT West driver, but in the end Aaron Tiggett says, you know what, I've had enough of being in this battle. As much as it's entertaining for me, the Team Bearpoke driver decides it is now time to use strategies to his advantage, and the Team Bearpoke driver could be onto something here. But meanwhile, we've had all this battling further down the order, and right at the front of the order, Edwin Onofre has closed up to Jaden Calloway, who's making himself as wide and obstinate as possible in towards the turn 12 hairpin, and Onofre gets the better exit, a much better exit there from the privateer. Onto the brakes they go, and Calloway decides, okay, I'm going to yield the inside, but what I can do is come back now and look for the sweeping cut wrap run in towards turn 16, and dives immediately back in there, and Onofre sees it's coming and decides, you know what, I'll just hang it around the outside and give you the raised apex curve to contend with. And as they make the way through, Edwin Onofre and Jaden Calloway playing what is high-speed chess between the two of them, and in the end, in this game of high-speed chess, it's Edwin Onofre who has at least made the first move and made the right one, because the privateer moves into lead this race by 6/10 over Jaden Calloway. But I don't think this battle's over yet, and it could be a question of who's been doing the right thing on strategy just as much as it is who's got the outright pace. More pit stops at play with Joseph Blamel into the pit lane as they make the way up the start finish straight and in towards turn number 1. Once again, it's gone to a 12th lap of racing at the Circuit of the Americas, but as they do, the field is now starting to spread out. Strategy becoming a bigger and bigger operative word, and well, Aaron Tiggett has left the pit lane as I look out my commentary booth window, and Joseph Blamel will likely do the same in short order. But this is Nick Bader still trying to attack the AM leader of Braden Mellin, the P8 Pro-Am driver, wanting to make some more progress before he comes into the pits, and David Adeyi is now starting looking to scythe his way all the way through this. As meanwhile, we look away for a brief moment, and that was Braden Melling going around there at what was turn number 13, and Melling with that spin, that is going to cost him very dear and cut the tyres as well as he brings himself back together. And a lot of drivers making mistakes here, whether they're Pro, Prime or AM, so he shouldn't be too embarrassed about it. But what it now means is that Glenn Bratton takes the AM lead, and well, it's been a long time since I've been able to say those words, and well, they do put a smile on my face to see the 289 Privateer leading the AM class, and Glenn Bratton really just enjoying his own race, not doing anything crazy, and in turn being rewarded with a highly consistent race. And remember what we said earlier on, perhaps keeping it calm and being on your best behaviour may be the way to win this race, and Glenn Bratton could be onto something here as he makes his way onto another lap. Meanwhile, Braden Melling coming down the pit lane, that's going to most likely be what be for his one and only stop, and well, he'll be wondering whether to put the tyres on or not here as he heads on down. And then we do have what is Roger Ganesh coming on through. In fact, is Braden Melling on a drive-through penalty? I think he is, because he did not stop there when he made his way on through the pit lane. So Braden Melling, with that off-track and that loss of control, that's been enough to push him over the 15 instant point count. So we could be starting to see more and more penalties coming here, but that was not a scheduled stop for Braden Melling, as Tanner Dibble has just made his way past Matt Best, who's had to recover himself from what was a spin into an outer at turn number 12. So the second breakfast driver relinquishing some overall positions, not losing out in Pro-Am class. He's still P2 Pro-Am, but he has lost what was their P6 overall to Tanner Dibble, and also I do believe at P5 to Eric Nickens. Well, in fact, no, it was just a place loss to Tanner Dibble. We'll get ourselves corrected, and that's Aaron Tiggott you see in front of him, who is a lap down at this point in the race. But Tiggott in his own race, and he has already taken a pit stop, and well, with the extended pit time around here in Tiggott, in fact, I do believe taking 4 new tyres on the car as well. A 50-second stationary stop at Tiggott into the pit lane again here. So Tiggott's got an issue with the car by the looks of things, or it's a drive-through penalty for instant points being accrued. Well, either way, the Team Bearpoke driver is having too many visits to the pit lane, and these are not happy visits, it must be said. Meanwhile, Nick Bader now trying to break away from Adeyeye, and Adeyeye has in fact had a bit of a moment coming on through what was a turn at number 13, as it is all unfolding left, right and centre with spins aplenty. And then we look to Tom Bryce with Shajee Zuhair behind, and the ITT West JMT teammates here, well, they'll be looking to work together, but keep in mind that Zuhair has already pitted, Bryce has yet to pit, so therefore Zuhair is going to pull out the toe for a brief moment, I think trying to send the signal to his teammate, which is, look, we're on different strategies, let me go when the time's right, because I need to chase down what is that the Pro-Am podium, and in doing so make sure my championship lead in the Drivers' Championship stays firmly connected, because as they make their way on through the S's with what is Mark Senegal yet to pit, the same for Matt Best and Matthew Quinton. Was Zuhair right now maybe finding himself having to scrap for P3 in the Pro-Am class, unless Best indiscretion only moments ago has reeled him backwards in terms of overall race time, and there's a very high possibility, albeit does Zuhair know that Best has had a major spin-off circuit, and we get the feeling he may not at this time, albeit Bryce will be helping here by giving Zuhair the opportunity to pick up a major overspeed down the back straight, and it may be that in fact that Zuhair has intentionally underfueled the car slightly, and therefore this is going to be the way he gets that fuel back, by doing some slipstream saving over the course of perhaps his first 1 or 2 laps out of the pit lane. But as they make the way on down and towards turn at number 12, well, meanwhile we look back towards the front of the field, and Edwin Onofre, after that absolutely brilliant pass from Jaden Calloway in their fantastic battle, well, he is absolutely flying now, setting a new fastest lap of the race. Last time around it was a 201.8, now it's gone down to a 201.776. Edwin Onofre is raising up the momentum here, and Jaden Calloway is being forced to respond, but with a 202.1 on that previous lap, it looks like Calloway here might have other ideas, or perhaps he hasn't got the pace, but instead he'll focus on the consistency. Matthew Quinton is still at P3, the Pro-Am leader, going a little bit deep there at the hairpin, but it's a lovely line. In fact, it enables him to carry more momentum than perhaps others would like. Well, Quinton right now running a very controlled race and keeping Dominic Ford at bay. Dominic Ford still P4. You can see them both there in the picture with Ford giving the chase. And notice there the difference in the rotational language of the cars again, in the fact that Quinton looking a lot more settled in the car. Meanwhile, Dominic Ford just looking as though he's having to force the car through the motions a bit more going into the S's. It could be different driving styles as well. Quinton perhaps enjoyed a bit more of a free-flowing style, a bit more of saying equivalent of a Jensen Button of the grid, whereas you might be seeing for Dominic Ford those more sharper and aggressive moments that might be associated perhaps with more of a driver like, for example, what would be Fernando Alonso. Very different dynamics of drivers, and more as the number 1 driver makes his way out to the corner there, the privateer right now, knowing there's still more to do if he wants to be on that overall podium. Behind them, meanwhile, Tanner Dibble and Eric Nickens enjoying their own little scrap for P5 overall. free-for-all as he makes his way out of the hairpin corner, and we ride on board the nose cone here of Tanner Dibble in the draft in the 00 machine. And will the DNA Motorsports driver will be thinking, what can he do? Eric Nickens there revealing a little bit of a defensive posture, albeit Dibble in the end decides just to stay behind, get nice and close, put some mental pressure onto his rival and make Nickens make the first move and make him guess, am I looking for a move, am I looking to fuel save, or is it going to be both? Well, as they make their way in towards turn at 13, you can see that Nickens goes very deep, the car slides loose from behind him, and Dibble in the end doesn't waste time in getting alongside. Now as he cleared his rival, yes he has, in towards turn 16, and Tanner Dibble there just simply putting the pressure on, and Nickens losing out a result as we've got more pit stops being played out. Kai Morais into the pits, the same for Aaron Lahr and Roger Ganesh in the pit lane as well. And for Ganesh, in fact, it's a second pit stop. It's a very long pit stop for Roger Ganesh. So therefore, his race may be coming to an abrupt end. And we're saying it's gone very wrong on the car off camera, albeit he is leaving the pit lane, but it is 2 visits to the pits for Roger Ganesh. And well, for all the drivers right now, it's highly unpredictable. As meanwhile, Eric Nickens decides, you know what? The tyres do seem to be a little bit too hot. I need to come into the pit. I can't afford to fight Tanner Dibble anymore. Otherwise, this race could be going further and further backwards. And I think Nickens absolutely timing it right. But as we make our way towards the end of what is the 30th minute of this race, well, we are now starting to head in towards crunch time with regards to the final 10 minutes and 9. Those who have yet to pit are very likely to need to do so within the next 3 to 4 minutes. Given the fuel tanks we've normally seen in these 40-minute sprint races, the maximum they've gone is up to the 35th minute of the race. And well, as Edwin Onofre makes his way on through the hairpin, Jaden Calloway has responded. That last lap from Calloway, a 2:01.55 to Onofre's 2:01.89. So Calloway rolling up his sleeves and saying, "2 can play at the game of being very fast over a single lap. I'm not letting you go that easy." Jaden Calloway right now definitely licking his wounds after that brilliant battle between himself and Edwin only moments ago. But it looks though Jaden here might be thinking about the bigger picture, thinking, okay, my time to strike is going to be as we get closer to this pit stop and what happens in the final quarter of this race, and where it's going to be absolutely fantastic to see. But of course, there's so many questions here that we have. Has either driver saved more fuel than the other? Will one driver potentially underfuel intentionally in order to try and get ahead, get an advantage, and then we see an absolute knife fight battle between them? There's so many questions out there, and the only way we'll get them answered is by carrying it all the way through to the checker flag as they make the way on around for turns 17 and 18. Both drivers here absolutely pushing each other to the absolute limit, but we know that Onofre loves to be out front as he directs himself in towards the pit lane, and Jaden Calloway is going to follow. So that means the fuel tanks have gone the distance, and now it is time for the pit stop. And all importantly, who will come out ahead as they make the way on down pit lane? Well, we'll have to see. As meanwhile, we have got here what is Shajee Zuhair as he makes his way on through the left-hander, excuse me, of that turn number 12. And Mark Senegal, I believe, with some slight technical difficulties, he may have had to retire from the race unexpectedly, and if so, that's going to release Zuhair up into P2 in the prime class, and Matt Best will move into P3. We'll keep you updated as to what's happening with Mark Senegal, but I believe he may be having a technical issue of some description as Dominic Ford goes on to do what is a 16 flap on the opening fuel tank. Well, he's going to be your track position leader, but Edwin Onofre is your strategic leader, and look at the gap that Edwin Onofre has opened in the pit. It's a slow pit stop for ITD West, a very slow pit stop, and in fact, Jaden Calloway has lost 3.5 seconds in the pit lane to Onofre, and well, now Calloway has got his work doubled up for him here, given the gap was 1 second when they went into the pits, 1.5 if you wanted to round it up slightly, but now it's been doubled up to practically 3, if not almost 4 seconds, and for Calloway, he's got to bring that down, and that is not a comfortable place to be. And the relative stationary time was 9.9 seconds for Onofre, meanwhile 10.8 seconds for Calloway, so that explains parts of it, but it seems though getting into his pit box and getting out of it, Calloway just simply taking longer by comparison, and now Onofre has been given some breathing room, and can he use that to keep the gap open, because that breathing room amounts to 4 seconds as they exit onto the back straight. Well, meanwhile, we look to Eric Nickens chasing after Tanner Dibble, and as they make the way on through, they both had their pit stops. The only driver yet to pit out there, well, in fact, we've got 3 drivers yet to pit. Braden Mellin has made his way into the pit lane. He has already visited the pits once, keep in mind it was for a drive-through penalty, so this is going to put him even further back in the running order. But Braden Mellin is now going to have that frustration line. He's got to serve his pit stop, and his race is going to unfold. Meanwhile, Glenn Bratton making his way on around here, and right now, for the 289 driver, all on his own, lonesome in the AM bottom class, minus Aaron Tiggott, who's a lap down, and Braden Mellings, who's in the pit lane, and Bratton just trying to bring this on home, but in fact has to come into the pit, so not enough fuel in the car, it would seem, after his first visit much earlier on, and Glenn Bratton's race and his opportunity to take victory is falling out of his hands as they make their way through. You can see Braden Mellings, there's car up on the jacks for a brief moment, so therefore putting new tyres on the car, or at least a couple of new tyres, and I think seeing the value there and the fact the tyres may be very heavily marked already, but Glenn Bratton with a drive-through penalty, and that is going to completely take the wind out of his sails and what could have been a run to victory. As Dominic Ford comes into the pit, he's decided he's got to come in. That fuel tank can't go any further as much as he'd like to push it, and Edwin Onofre right now retakes the lead of this race. Overall in the pro class, with Jaden Calloway being 4.4 seconds behind and not quite getting the car switched on as rapidly as he would like versus his rival. But these two absolutely pushed each other the distance, there's no doubt about it, as Dominic Ford is going to very shortly leave the pit lane and he will be coming back out into this race in P4 behind Matthew Quinton. And well, Dominic Ford, I believe, has got Tanner Dibble for company, and there you can see it into turn one. Dibble immediately looking around the outside to inside cutback, and Dominic Ford having to go defensive. And the problem is here that is not going to help the tyre compound whatsoever, because he's suddenly going to have to really ramp up the temperature with the compound that's run on these LMP3 machines. And the thing is, they can deal with gradual change in temperature and even the occasional sharp blister in temperature, but when it's a very unique situation like we're seeing here, where he's come out on a tyre which is going to be much cooler, it's been able to cool down the pit lane, and he's suddenly got to spike it up in temperature and maintain it up there in order to keep Dibble behind. Well, that could very quickly take away his tyre life and take away his posture over the course of the race. So you can see Dibble and Nickens queuing up behind. Dibble's going to look to the inside. Eric Nickens just watches on, and Dominic Ford there does not offer a defence on through the corner, because he knows that outside line gives him more room to put the throttle down, and therefore now it's going to be a drag race down this back straight. But as he pounds his way on down, cuts across there, my goodness, almost taking the nose off of Dibble, as Dibble looking one way and then next, and Dominic Ford here will weave from side to side for a brief moment, gets it under control as Eric Nickens looks on as well, but Dibble's going to try and go around the outside here. It was turn number 12 with only 5.5 minutes of this race to go, and Ford absolutely keeping his head down and pushing on as they make the way on through turn number 13. But as they do, we can see just behind there Eric Nickens still waiting. He's becoming a bit of an observer here. He doesn't want to get too closely embroiled in this battle, for the given reason that if his two rivals in front decide to escort each other off the road, well, then he may have an opportunity to take both places with minimum effort, and those are always the best places to be gained. But he's going to be wary of the fact he's got Jason Landry approaching fast, as Landry right now absolutely on a mission here to try and bring himself back up the order. He's recovered to P7 since his early spins in this race, his 2 unenforced errors, and now for Jason Landry with Shajee Zuhair right behind him, he'll just want to try and get onto the back of what is that Ford Dibble Nickens battle and try to give himself an opportunity to battle for P4. As you can see, Landry sliding his way out of turn 20. I think we've seen Landry for the first time today more sideways than pointed in a straight direction, but to be fair, he's trying to get the most out of that LMP3, and who could blame him? They're very tricky cars to drive. But as he makes his way to turn at number 1 with Shajee Zuhair right behind him right now. Well, Zuhair would love to gain one more place, but Matthew Quinton is off in the distance, and it's going to take a bit of lady luck now, and therefore unfortunate circumstances for Matthew Quinton to lose out versus Shajee Zuhair, who does seem to be a long way off of Quinton's absolutely stellar and unfathomable pace here at the Circuit of the Americas. Because we won't heap too much praise on him, because we don't want to apply the commentator's curse before this race is all said and done. But good news, ladies and gentlemen, he did have a technical issue, but he has rejoined the race in P18. Mark Senegal is back and racing once again. So the Sunday GT Turtles car, I should say, mincing all my words together very rapidly. The Canadian driver is back out there 2 laps down, but remember, if he finishes within 5 laps of the race winner, it will be a classified race result. And well, great to see there Senegal back and racing it once again as he winds his way on through the S's. But let's come back to the Ford Dibble and Nickens battle, and well, it's version 2 of it now as they make their way down into turn number 12. But interestingly, notice this time Dibble decides to back off on entry into the braking zone and instead encroach closer into turn 13. Interesting, now Dibble's keeping Ford guessing. He's not going to be predictable. He's going to change up the attack each and every time into this sequence, because we can see that Dibble is the stronger of the two of them on through the stadium section. But the problem is, given the taper into the apexes here, the run is so narrow, it does mean that Ford has the ability to make his car very wide. But Dibble's going to try and keep Ford guessing, and that guessing game is where mistakes happen. But Dibble makes a mistake of his own coming on through turn 18, and as a result has to back off there, and well, it's almost too wide into turn 19 versus Nickens. But you'll know that if he goes too wide versus Nickens, the two of them will lose out, and it will be at Ford who just is able to run away. So therefore decides that it's better to take what is the loss for a brief moment and bring himself back into that battle. Jason Landry now only 2.8 seconds off of this freeway fight. He's cut the gap by 2 seconds over the course of this lap. He's still got a bit more to do, but he could be there on the final lap because we are onto the penultimate lap with 2.5 minutes to go. We will squeeze what is a 20th lap in after this 19th lap. So therefore our prediction of number of laps being a little bit under the estimate. But right now it's anybody's guess who out of what is these 3 drivers, potentially soon to be 4 drivers, will be taking the 3rd place spot in the Pro class and P4 overall, with Matthew Quinton being a long way up the road. He won't be brought into this battle unless he has an error of his own, but we are going to stay with this fight all the way to the end of the race, given the fact that right now it is the only close battle out of the circuit. Of course, I don't think many of you guys and girls at home will complain too much about that one, and Tanner Dibble absolutely attacking once more now as we ride aboard with the 00 driver as he comes on down in towards turn at number 11, and as he heads onto the brakes here, where you could see Nickens taking a bit of a tighter line, thinking about putting some mental pressure to Ford about how he could potentially tease out a move for a bit of late braking, but in the end, no such fortune. In fact, losing a bit of momentum to Ford and brings himself back into the danger zone versus Dibble. Now Nickens putting the car in the middle of the road, but Ford there putting the toe in the middle of the road. So Nickens having to follow with the slipstream as it all stay safe, but Dibble backing off there and not going for the move. He's thinking about it. You can see, look at the steering snapping loose there as he tries to come off the brakes and get the turn in. And well, the loss of the downforce over the front of the car, the aero wash of his 2 rolls in front. Well, right now Dibble trying to drive on the absolute limit, but the problem is that limit being reduced in terms of what the car could do, or at least what it's saying to it could do, given the fact that he's losing that natural downforce of his 2 rolls in front. As they make their way through turn 18, this is where he'll feel it the most. You can see he has to take those tighter turning lines in order to take the same overall effective racing line and carry a similar amount of speed, but that's what you have to do in the dirty air. You have to turn in earlier, you have to reduce your entry speed to maintain a similar exit speed. And as he heads in towards turn 20, that's why he's able to stay absolutely good to the rear of his rivals. Oh, goodness me, Eric Nickens goes round, pushing too hard there in the chase after what was Dominic Ford, but Eric Nickens loses out and falls to the back of the pack in this battle, and Jason Landry and Shajee Zuhair going through as the white flag waves, and suddenly in that three-way fight, it becomes a 2-way fight instead. And well, Matt Best now looking at opportunity here, and Nickens is going to go defensive immediately up the rise in towards turn number 1 and make sure that Best can't make his way on through, and Best would love to take this place off his rival, but Nickens has got other ideas. It tires it. He's going to try and cool down whilst also fighting, and will name a contradiction. That is definitely one there, as Best right now absolutely tucked and glued onto the rear of Nickens, trying to put him under pressure to not let his tyres cool down whatsoever, given he'll know there's been a spin for Nickens. But the problem is, catching is one thing, passing is another, as the late great Murray Walker has once said, and indeed around this COTA circuit, particularly for the first half of the lap, that definitely does apply. But as they head in towards turn at number 9, Best all over the back of his rival for now, but will he be able to find the move? It doesn't look like it at this point in time, unless he goes for a late dive here into the hairpin, and we know that Best can be very bold on the brakes, but Nickens just puts off racing line there in order to defend, but Best gets the better cutback run as they come off of the corner. He's now 3 tenths behind, and as he tucks into the tyre, he's going to try and close up. He'll be approximately 2 tenths come the end of the run, but it is going to be a long run down towards turn number 12, and right now going absolutely defensive is Nickens all the way through, and as they come down towards the braking zone, Nickens on the right, Best on the left. Best is going to try and go all the way around the outside, and well, it's too wide in, and Best will try and get ahead, but we must cut away from that, ladies and gentlemen, because the checker flag waves, and out of the final corner he makes it 3 wins of the season, 2 in a row for Edwin Onofre, as he leads home at the race ahead of Jaden Calloway, P2 by 3.5 seconds. Matthew Quinton will then make his way in towards the last couple of quarters, and for Matthew Quinton it will be a prime win to be joyous about. As you can see, he waves it from side to side there. He knows he's done it. He takes P3 over an overall podium full sprint for the first time this season as well. Dominic Ford will then come through, as we did just see, I believe, Braden Melling also make his way across the line as your AM winner P15, a lap down, but Dominic Ford will take P4 just ahead of Tanner Dibble, with Jason Landry hot on the heels P6, Shajee Zuhair run up in the prime class P7 overall, and it will be Eric Nickens who finishes P8 for Votan Clan, fend off Matt Best all the way to the finish, and then Jermaine Warren will be your last driver to finish inside the top 10. As the middle of the pack racing driver makes his way through the left-hander, and well, he's been anonymous for most of the race, but also he's been out of trouble for most of it as well, and he will take a solid result there with a P4 in the Pro-Am class in the 113. We've then got Tom Bryce making his way up to the last couple of quarters, as Mark Senegal 2 laps down just in front of him. P18 also finishes his race, great to see, but Tom Bryce then rounds off the top 5 of the Prime class with P11, best of the rest finish overall, and then we will have Wesley Griffith making his way on through the last couple of quarters here in order to complete his race journey. And the Votan clan driver absolutely having a challenging race, a frustrating one at certain points, but still bringing it home is the important thing. And our last finisher on the lead lap is going to be this man, Nick Bader, the privateer, coming on through the last couple of quarters in order to complete his race distance there and take what will be P7 Pro and P13 on the overall lap. But as he does so, a special mention as well to Braden Melling, who in fact, whilst he has completed his race, he's doing his cool down lap, he's got enough fuel and loses the rear there, but a special mention to this man as he does in the end tow the car to the pits for the simple reason that he picked up the drive-through penalty and therefore had to make 2 visits to the pits, but even despite all that, brought on home the AM win with P15 overall, and misfortune to run up in the AM class. Glenn Bratton, who thought he had it all done until a pesky drive-through penalty for track limits cost him that, and Aaron Tiggett, your 3rd place finisher in the class. But goodness me, ladies and gentlemen, what a race. It kept us guessing all the way through, but let's take a look at those race results subject to Eddie Stewart's inquiries, and here they are as they do appear on screen. And as we can see, after 40 minutes of racing in round 6 of the Middle of the Pack Racing League, falling into LMP3 Championship for 2024, brought to you by a parody sponsor, the Dentistry Conference World Tour, Edwin Onofre, your winner overall in the pro class, the privateer, making it 3 wins this season after his wins at Imola and Interlagos, and now here today in the US state of Texas by 3.5 seconds ahead of Jaden Calloway. Jaden Calloway, meanwhile, for ITD West, keeping Onofre honest over the entire distance, much like Eric Nickens did at Interlagos, but Calloway today finding if he couldn't beat Onofre on pace, he couldn't beat him on strategy either, and 3.5 seconds was the delta at the end. Matthew Quinton, meanwhile, 3rd place and the 3rd spot on that overall podium. A brilliant drive there for the privateer, and the Briton taking home the Pro Am win as well, so taking those 3 bonus points in the 184. He'll be absolutely jubilant about that, with Dominic Ford a further 11 seconds behind, and the privateer won at Spa at the start of the season, not quite able to match the pace of the top 3, but definitely able to hold on to that P4 and round off the Pro podium. Because behind him, Tanner Dibble and Jason Landry for DNA Motorsports and Sunday GT Turtles both had their own unique journeys in this race and pushed Dominic Ford to the distance, but Tanner Dibble in the end couldn't quite find a way through, and Jason Landry caught up too late after those 2 early spins. Shajee Zuhair returned to the prime podium with P2 there for ITT West JMT, following on from his podium at last time out in the Interlagos circuit, albeit wondering where the pace has come from regarding Quinton, and then that we have got a championship fight definitely on our hands between the 2 of them. But from the ITT West JMT driver, Eric Nickens finished P8 there for Votan Clan in a challenging day today, and what could have been a 4th place, falling into a P8 at the close, but still just fended off Matt Best at the finish there for 2nd breakfast, and their brilliant battle all the way to the end, and Matt Best rounded off the prime podium with a P9 overall. And then it was Jermaine Warren who completed your top 10 with the middle of the pack racing at driver in the 113, just keeping it calm, cool, collected throughout, and best of the rest was Tom Bryce at ITT West JMT. We had 2 more finishers on the lead lap, Wesley Griffith being one of them, P12, and Nick Bader being at P13 the other, and then finishing a lap down, Aaron Lahr, P14, the privateer, just ahead of his fellow privateer, Glenn Bratton, who in fact listed there and what is your AM winner on, I believe that may be for a post-race penalty given what was the off-track that we saw for Braden Melling. Now, whether the win was given back to Braden Melling at the end of the race, after the race, I should say, not quite sure about that one, but that's a surprise and not a welcome one to be sure if you're a Braden Melling fan, but definitely there, the AM class win being listed as going to Glenn Bratton after post-race automated penalties being applied to the privateer there. Well, if so, he'll be absolutely pleased with that one, because that will be his 1st AM win of the season. But Braden Melling listed as P2 there for Eclipse Racing Esports by Skyline Designs, and then your AM podium being completed. Also, what was it there? 2 laps down, Aaron Tiggett for Team Bearpo. Another 2 laps down as well for Mark Senegal, who returned to the race after technical issues for Sunday GT Turtles. But I'm also pleased to say that Mark Senegal, I do believe your winner of the Texas Speed Sim Racing livery competition. His car picking up the most votes from the Texas Speed Sim Racing voting panel, and therefore he'll be the recipient of the $10 US of what is iRacing credit. So congratulations to him on that, even though the race didn't quite go the way he wanted it to today. And then we do see there David Adeyi, P19, 4 laps down, but as classified for ITT West, and the same for Kai Moraes, who completed your top 24 laps down. Behind the Brazilian, P21 to Roger Ganesh, the first of our classified retirements for Sunday GT Turtles or non-finishers, and a misfortune as well for Joseph Blamel there for Eclipse Racing Esports by Skyline Designs, and our first retiree of the day, who only completed 3 laps, Julian Jones for ITT West JMT, a day not to be smiling about, unfortunately, in the United States of A. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, what a challenging race, no doubt about it. 23 starters, and in the end, 3 non-finishers. And, well, in terms of all of our finishers, we did see what was 13 on the lead lap, but a race to be remembered, no doubt about it, for the brilliant battles up and down the field. But with that, it does mean the story here in the US state of Texas comes to an end, and it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know more about the Middle of the Pack Racing League community in terms of how you could be on the grid for one of our future series, or you just want to get to know the organisers and drivers a little bit more. Well, for all that and more, we firstly recommend you do join the official Middle of the Pack Racing League Discord. Invite link available on screen there, because it is a rising community in the North American continent when it comes to sim racing on the iRacing platform, amongst other sim racing platforms as well. But whether you are from the North American continent, or alternatively, if you're alternatively on another continent of the world, there's never been a better time to join what is the Middle of the Pack Racing League community, and you won't find a friendlier community in the sim racing world, that I could assure you. But if you don't want to join the Discord, perhaps you're a little bit shy, well, you can of course follow us on social media at the Middle of the Pack Racing League Twitter, and that's at twitter.com/MOP Racing. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we turn our attention to the penultimate round of the season, because in only a couple of days' time, on what will be Wednesday the 23rd of October, our drivers will go racing for round number 7 at the Fuji International Speedway. But we will be bringing you all the racing action as if it were live from circuit side on Saturday the 26th of October. Indeed, we return to our usual Saturday slot, and we start to turn the final pages in the long story and all those chapters of the Fall-ing into LMP3 Championship. The Fuji circuit, of course, a circuit known for being highly challenging with its mixture of its extended start-finish straight and its wide, sweeping range of corners that come down to a very low-speed end to lap before they do it all over again. But which of our drivers will be heading into the season finale on a high? We'll tune in next time as we head to Japan for the 7th round of the season. But until then, we have been the Middle of the Pack Racing League. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain and Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, as always, ladies and gentlemen, remember to stay on track. Good night.